Hello and welcome to Lexi's Healthy Dynamic Life. I am Lexi, and on today's podcast, I have the pleasure of interviewing Della Upsher. Della is from Della's Raw Food Journey. She is a fabulous woman who went from failing health to thriving. She's going to be a speaker at the UK Fruit Fest this year. Welcome, Della. It's so nice to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I really love it. I really love it when people reach out and want to know my journey. Little old me at 65 nearly.
Yay! Yeah. Well, we're so glad you're here. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you located, and what's your story?
Okay, well, I'm lucky to be, lucky or unlucky with this lockdown. I live on high up on a mountain, so I've got pure fresh air, lots of land to myself. It's in Spain, Alicante, up in the mountains. I've planted a lot of trees last year, and hoping they'll grow in my lifetime. And I came into the journey. It'll be 6 years in February. Why did I come into the journey? At 59, I was looking after my husband with dementia, and I was struggling. I was finding it hard to bend at the knees to put his socks on. I'd already had a triple heart bypass, arthritis, vertigo, so many things I had wrong with me. And here in Spain, I do not speak the language. And the doctor actually said to me, she didn't speak fantastic English, you're a very poorly person, and there's not a lot more we can do for you. And the next thing would probably be stents. I was struggling using a GNT spray to be able to do my chores and things. Never walked these mountains because I never had the energy to do that. And so that's me coming into this lifestyle.
Awesome. So how did you hear about using raw plant foods as a way?
I was hoping that would be, because we've not practiced questions, I was hoping that would be. So what happened, I had, she's since died, I had my stepdaughter. She was a similar age to me, but she was like a stepdaughter. And sadly, she said to me, she said, I'm not going to have, she had a massive heart attack. She said, I'm not going to have stents. I'm not taking medication. I said, you're crazy. You've got to do what the doctors tell you. And I said, where are you coming from? And she said that she was reading up on the Gerson diet. And when she had all the equipment and everything, she was going to start this raw journey. And so I read the Gerson. From that day on, I read and I read and I read. But from the hour into reading about the Gerson diet and the Gerson way, I went raw straight away. I realised that something clicked in my head, and I just realised. But I didn't follow the Gerson because it was like, take your amalgams out, do this, do that. So I just started reading, and it was all similar things. You know what it's like, it's all similar things. And I must admit, I was 11 stone. I didn't really worry too much about my weight because it was like, I was obese. I was classed as obese, but it was only 3 stone, and I don't know how many kilos that is. And where was I leading with that? I've forgotten where I was leading with that. So the books that I actually read was saying to juice. So, and I wasn't doing it for weight loss. I was not doing it for weight loss. I was doing it for health. So I started reading this book, but it was a lot of, and I won't say the book because I don't think it's fair to the author, but people might realize who it is. It's all about taking supplements, taking their supplements, and juicing at first. And it was costing an absolute fortune, money that I just was throwing down the pan, lots of enemas, lots of this, that, and the other. And but I did 31 days of juicing. I never ate anything in that 31 days. I just juiced predominantly greens and maybe an apple, went in for the flavour. I lost all of my weight in that first 6 weeks. Never, and I didn't want to lose all that weight. I wanted, so if I was doing this again, I wouldn't have done the juicing. I would have gone straight in. It wasn't until 8 months into my journey that I coached with Paul and Julia, just one or two. I'd already had my experience, but I felt I needed that little bit extra. So I consulted with Paul and Julia a couple of times. And in the very first hour, all the books I'd read, like 80 books, I don't know how I missed it, they introduced me to the 80-10-10 diet by Dr. Graham. And that was it. As soon as I started reading, I realized I only needed my own self and fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, nothing else, to be well. And I've stuck with that because I do have a lot of people that like my advice. And it's always, look, if I go on the fruit diet, will it make me lose my weight? And what I say is, forget about weight. Weight has to, take a back seat here. It's all about it being our species-specific diet and, for our health reasons, because for me, it definitely was health reasons. And that's it. I've never, ever looked back with, I stick predominantly to raw. I've had a couple of slip-ups, feel awful. A little bit of steamed vegetables or something. I'm not saying, anybody that can come off the standard American diet and actually do it, even if it's with a little bit of steamed vegetables and 80% raw, they're still gonna, they need a medal basically, and they're still gonna feel fantastic, but not as fantastic as being 100% raw.
I love it. Thank you for sharing your journey. And it sounds like you tried a couple of things until settling on the 80-10-10 diet, and that's where you really felt thriving. Do you still juice now, or do you eat all whole foods?
No, I went right on, because I think that we are meant to actually eat our food, but what I was finding, because yes, I have gone back to juicing, and because what I was finding, even though I was 5 years into raw, I felt like I was missing out on cooked food, missing out on, I had this craving, I wanted things, and it didn't feel right. And so, because I felt like I was I know it sounds silly because there is a lot of variety, but I felt like I was lacking in variety, and I started to juice again. But I changed. I seemed to do full on at something, and then it would change. But it'll always be. And Dr. Graham, 80-10-10, doesn't really believe, it's okay with smoothies, it's okay to eat the food, but he's not really into juicing. And so that's why I say, because I always usually put 80-10-10, because it's Della's Raw Food Journey, if you look me up, and it's my journey, my mistakes and everything. And so I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, and I decided to put juicing back into my diet. So in the morning, because what happens with me, I sleep fantastically, lights out at 10 o'clock, because it's not just the diet, you know, it's lights out 10 o'clock. I've got like I've got no windows, it's doors with mosquiteras on them. The door is left wide open, the air is flowing, no stale air in my room. And then 7, I wake up around, I'd like to wake up at 6:30, but it doesn't always happen like that. But around that time, I do still, you know, before Raw, I would get up 4 or 5 times to go to the, you know, to go for a wee during the night. I do still wake once in the night, but I'm sort of sleep. I wake once in the night, and then I wake up at 6:30 in the morning, and I have to wait. I must admit, I wake up, I go straight and get my iPad and have a look, you know, what messages I've got. And then a fantastic thing happens. I have to go to the loo, you know, within 15 minutes of waking. So if I wake at 8 o'clock, within 15 minutes, if I wake at 6:30, within 15 minutes. And then, after that, I just think it's amazing that because before I just didn't go, you know, it could be 3-4 days, and I just automatically, you know, just go, and then it's clothes on. It's clothes on, you know, my music on, and I'm out the door, and I'm running. And I'm running, I can do a kilometre in around 6 minutes. I can run a kilometre, and I'm trying to beat, but because it's a lot of mountain as well, it's like walk run, and I've got it down to 6 kilometres in 50 minutes. And then I feel the endorphins, the buzz, because I was decrepit before. I was at work in decline before, and I really thought that I didn't have much. My father died young, and I didn't really feel that I had much longer. But now I feel that I'm a work in progress. I don't worry about dying anymore. I don't worry about, obviously, you know, there's only so much you can change. I was 59 when I actually came into this, you know, so I'd already done a heck of a lot of damage to my body. And I feel better now, because I've got, you know, you can see I've got the scar down the front of me, and staples inside where I had the triple heart bypass. I suffer with no triple heart. I suffer with my heart no longer. I don't. I was on 7 meds, some of the meds twice a day, and I don't take anything now. Why? You know, like, I changed one thing, and now I'm not on. You know, you get different medications for different for different things wrong, and yet I don't need any of it anymore. My blood pressure is perfect, and I just feel like I'm flying. And then, so I might as well lead on from there. So I have around 10 a.m. I would prefer to leave it till midday before I eat. But for some reason, when I came back from England, because I like to be 50 kilos, 8 stone. And for some reason, when I came back from England, I went through a healing crisis, which I love to have my healing crisis, because it just sets me up for going forward, removing toxins from my body. And but I lost a little bit of weight. I dropped weight back down to 7 stone 6. And if we undereat, then we're not, we have to eat the correct amount of calories on the 80-10-10 diet, or this sort of diet, and to get all our nutrients and everything in. And so I went on Chronometer. I checked my amount of calories, and I was only eating around 1,400 calories. Hence, the weight, had dropped off me. So I've worked towards, but since January, since I came back from England, I've worked on gaining my weight. Everybody wants to lose weight. I wanted to gain weight. So, and I do have many anorexic followers. And like just this morning, I posted where I was 7'11", and now I'm 7'13", which is just under 50 kilos. And I'm so proud of that, So I entered my calories on Chronometer again today to see where I'm at. And because I've introduced, they've got some fantastic dates, and I introduced some dates back into my diet, around 500 calories for 200 grams. There's where, what's helped with the weight gain. So for me, a day would be the juice, which is about 14 to 16 ounces. And what I try and have, like 3/4 of the jug is got to be greens. So it could be kale, collard, Swiss chard, kale, Swiss chard, and the top is watercress. For health, the top one is actually watercress. I like the spiciness of watercress. So, because it's better for me than, putting a knuckle of ginger in. So those 3 definitely go in. And then I might even put some broccoli in. Swiss chard gives a lot of yield, but when I put kale in, I notice I'm only getting like a tiny amount of juice for that. And then I'll either just put an apple or 2 apples, or I'll put an apple and 2 mandarins. Obviously, I peel the mandarins, and I love that juice. And then my lunchtime, and I do stick to a food combining chart, but I know it off by heart now. And then, so my lunchtime today was over 1,900 calories. My lunch today was 900 grams of mango, 2 huge mangoes, 900 grams, fantastic. And 400 grams of bananas, which was 4 bananas, and 200 grams of raspberries. And I'm like, like when I was young, it was like opal fruits. And I was like, oh, I'm in heaven with my opal fruits. That's how I am with my, with that lunchtime bowl. And it's been the same bowl for quite some time, because, I change. I can't have it forever, because, well, with those 3 things, I can get them. But once the taste is not right, I won't be having them anymore. And then, so recently, up until last week, from sort of November, my pre-dinner meal then was mandarins. I just love them, but they've got to taste right. If they're not right, you're going to come up with little ulcers in the mouth that go down quite quickly. But my mouth actually tells me when something's not right. And then so that's pre-dinner. It'll be a big bowl of romaine lettuce, around 200 grams of it, because I like my romaine on its own. I don't know why, I just like my romaine on its own. So I'll have it with my pre-dinner fruit. And so So recently it was mandarins, and now, and I'm thinking, you know, you'd think I'd know like 5, 6 years in what's going to come in next. I'm thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? My mandarins are finishing, but cherries have just come into season. So it's like my lettuce and my cherries pre-dinner, and then I will start feeling hungry about 40 minutes after that again, after I finish, around 40 minutes. And for me, because I was strict until recently. I didn't have any cruciferous vegetables, you know, things like cauliflower, and things like that, carrots. It was a no-no for 5 years. I didn't, but I was a leafy green guy, but maybe that's why I was craving things of old, because I certainly don't crave anymore. You know, I'm in heaven with what I actually do now. It feels right to me. So then my last meal is then probably, and I'm just loving it, and I'm having it every day. And maybe, you know, they say variety, but I've not done bad by, you know, sticking to similar most days, you know. So for me now, and I just love it, it's 400 grams of cauliflower on a bed of young tender spinach, cauliflower, and then sweet red pepper, you know, the long ones, sliced. I like it chunky. I like that because my teeth are, you know, they were, I did have pyorrhea, bleeding gums, and my teeth were loose. And now my teeth are, a lot of them are not mine, I must admit. They're, you know, like most of them are, but, you know, I've got a couple of little teeth where I've lost my teeth because I'm 65, but my teeth are stronger. So I like the crunch of the cauliflower. I don't like it when I make it into a rice. I like the chunkiness. So then what I do then, I make an amazing sauce, keeping, I try to keep it around 10% fat, which is 80-10-10. But because my skin, I love everything, but my skin hasn't, it's been dry, it's not felt, you know, and I listened to a podcast and it said maybe we should up our fat a little bit, because my fat was around 6-7% all the time, and now my fat is around 10-11%, and my skin is starting to it is not looking so dry. So and what goes into my sauce, I used to stick to one fat, but I now put 2 fats, because, you know, if I have one fat one day, one fat the next day, one fat the next day, it doesn't work out so good for me. So it's raw tahini, just a tablespoon of raw tahini and half a tablespoon of hemp seeds. Or if I want 11%, if I want 9%, it's that, you know. If I want around 11%, I can have a whole tablespoon of hemp seeds. And I've got a little blender that goes in the blender with some, just 2 pieces of dried tomatoes that have been soaked, 2, it's a herb from the garden, basil, 2 leaves, not too much, 2 quite big leaves of basil, then my tablespoon of hemp, my tablespoon of tahini, and 1 stick of celery goes in, and it makes it, should I say meaty, it makes it chunky, it makes it, you know, that gets blended, oh, with some lemon, because, you know, it won't blend otherwise. Some lemon goes in with that, and I massage that into my salad. And then I top it with little cherry tomatoes. But then you know, I've got a few different ways that I actually do it, and that's my dinner then. And then I know it's wrong because they say add the fruit, and I did for 5 years. You know, I did it all 100% correct, but I still feel like something maybe half an hour, 45 minutes later, and I have some dates, some of the dried, they're off the tree, they're straight off the tree on the sticks, forgotten the name of them, and they're a little bit dry, you know, and that's it for me. I don't drink any, I know, first of all, I will say that the sodium content in the food needs to be kept low. So my sodium, because one thing that I do wrong, really, but I don't care, is that I have Bragg's liquid aminos. Now, you know, it's touted as being fantastic, but it's made from, I forget what it's made from, but it's got sodium in it. It's not salt, because if I eat salt, my blood pressure rises. As soon as I have anything salty, my blood pressure rises. If you know, because I have cheated 5 or 6 times, or maybe 10 times, no more than 10, and I've had a handful of crisps, and I think, wow, you know, and I do my blood pressure, usually a perfect 120, and it's up to 150. You know, so I keep my my sodium level and to around 1,000 milligrams. So that's on chronometer, that would be about 46%. So, and the sodium is in fruit as well. We do not need the Brags. I do not need the Brags. I'm getting plenty of salt from my fruits and vegetables, but I reintroduced it back in. But another thing that I do, so that I'm not using as much, is that I've got a spray container, and I put half water and half rags. So, you know, I can have twice as much, but I'm only having half as much, really, because I've put the water with it. Usually when I've entered my food on to chronometer, I don't need any water. I'm getting 120% water. So my Nature's Cure practitioner actually said to me, because I have been with a Nature's Cure practitioner, it's back to nature for me. It's never doctors if I can help it, and it's never medications. What would I do in nature? What, you know, and I do what Nature's Cure advises me. And for some reason, she asked me to drink the minimum amount of water, and I went one better than that. I didn't drink any water for 4 months, any water at all, because I could see that I was getting 120% or 116% water from my food. And when I had blood tests, the kidney values, the GABA filtration was, it was either 76 or 82. I couldn't believe it. It was back up to the maximum of 90 without water, you know, and we're supposed to drink water to keep us alive. When I see people, you know, saying, oh, I drink 2 litres of water before I start, you know, but I'm not saying for anybody to start this diet and stop drinking water. It would kill you, you know. I was 4 years in, or 3 or 4 years in, before I, you know, was told about, you know, to drink the minimum of water. But I noticed today that when I entered my food, because I'm not having the mandarins, my water intake was 86%. So I thought, okay, I'm going to add a 16-ounce glass of water to this today, or a coconut. I prefer, you know, a huge 14, but I've only got 1 coconut here. So well, no, I can have a coconut because I go shopping tomorrow. So I prefer to have 14 ounces. It's a fresh coconut, and drink that. And then that took my water content up to 116%. So that's it, really. That's how I do things. And And I do my sun baths, 20 minutes each side, in the nude, in the safe sun. You know, I don't go out there and burn, although, you know, I have got a nice tan. I try and go out in the sun sort of between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. When I come back from my run, I'm really lucky. I have an infrared sauna in the house, and I have a sauna some days. I have a sauna, have a shower, and then go out and do my sun bath. And sometimes I might even do a hip bath, ice cold water. When the weather's, I can't do it when it's cold, because I'm raw. My core temperature is a little bit lower than when I'm, you know, when I was stuffing myself with hot food. And it's not the heat that does it; it's the mechanics of the body that, you know, make the temperature, because we're struggling, basically, the white blood cells and everything, we are struggling. And now I don't struggle. My core temperature is that little bit lower, so I've got a big like container that's like a little mini bath, and I will put ice and water in there and plunge my only my hip area. My legs will be out and my hips will be in the hip bath. Why do I do this? Because even though I'm 6 years into raw, I'm still not, you know, I've got a lifetime, 59 years of disease in my body that needed to be cleaned. It needs to be cleaned. So what happens, you plunge this area, and I was told I have a lot of waste in my waist area, and the heat goes to that part of the body, and it thinks, oh, I better start doing a little bit of work on this part of the body. And so I do that as well, most days. And skin brushing. My skin is like leather, I must admit. You know, it's I did stop because somebody said to me, I always post my body online, because, you know, I show a photo of me, of the shape of me before going raw. And even when I was my youngest, I never had an hourglass figure. I never had a waist. Even though I was only sort of 8.5 stone, I was aiming for what I've got now at 64. You know, my body, you know, obviously I've got my wrinkles, I've got my, you know, I'm not trying to be young, but when I posted my body, like I cut my head off the other day and just posted my body, and somebody actually said yesterday, if you you know, they passed comment and they said, Della, if you was to dye your hair, you'd look 15 years younger. And my response was, for health reasons, I'm never going to dye my hair again, you know, because it's dangerous. It's the toxins that we take in that I'm working my damnedest to get out of my body. And if I start dyeing my hair every 6 weeks again, and my head burning, you know, from the toxins, no, I'd rather age gracefully. I did stop wearing moisturizer. I've always used an oil. You know, what I can eat, I use on my body, and I use an oil on my face. Any oil, you know, I don't like coconut oil. It's too greasy. So it might be rose oil or almond oil or you know, something like that on my face. But I noticed the bottom parts of my legs, they needed a cream. You know, they were like because they, you know, it says that the body works from the inside. Well, it weren't working for my legs. So I've reintroduced as natural, because the less things on the actual container, the better, you know. And my legs are looking fantastic again. You know, I've only been moisturising for the last few days, and I haven't got that leathery look to my skin anymore, you know. So that's me. I work on me 100%. I'm living on my own while my son lives in another part of the property. I live on my own, and I work 100% on me basically, and I'm reaping the rewards from doing it.
That's amazing, Della. I'm so grateful that you shared your story in such great detail. It was really powerful to hear about your journey from failing health to thriving. And I think that's something that a lot of our listeners can resonate with. I know I can. I came to raw food specifically for weight loss, but it wasn't just that. I was suffering with migraine headaches, digestive issues, joint pains, muscle aches, problems sleeping. Like the list goes on and on. So I think that it's just amazing to see how you were able to reverse your disease by changing your diet. And I'm just curious, was it ever presented to you as an option for treatment to change your diet? When you said you had procedures and medications, did they ever offer to change your
Do you
diet?
know, do you know this scar right down the front of me? And I've had my legs, I've had the veins ripped out of my legs. My heart's been flapped on the table, and there was no computer. I didn't use a computer when I was only in my 40s. I couldn't research or anything. And what happened to me is I was struggling. I was struggling to breathe. I'd never been able to breathe via my nose, always via my mouth. And I'd had a few angiograms, and I would, you know what angiograms are, where they go into, and they sent me home. They said I was fine, but I was still struggling. And for some reason, the doctor saw something on the angiogram, and he took me back into hospital and asked me to go back in to recheck. And I'm a bit of a flirt, I'm not, I'm a flirt. And I was watching the screen because I was awake when we were doing it, and we were getting on really well. He was just about to tell me I'm wrong. I can't find what I thought was wrong. And I went into cardiac arrest. I died, and I was resuscitated. And I was told, yeah, and I was told that, you can't go home. We have to, what will happen, you would just, if we let you go home, you could just drop dead. You would not have had a heart attack or anything. You would just drop dead. If somebody's there to resuscitate you, you'd get up and walk away. But there's not many that's going to resuscitate you. We need to do a triple heart bypass. And I accepted this, I accepted this. I didn't have to have a triple heart bypass. All I needed to do was be given, because what they do, they give you a book, and you go, for exercise afterwards. But the book says lean meat, lean this, less of this. It's not correct. We have to unlearn to relearn. We have to throw everything in our past, everything we've been taught us to go out of the window. And I would just say this, because I was brought up by my mother and father. My father begged me. He died at 59. He begged me to help him. I didn't have a clue back then. And my mother was putting some peas, some frozen peas, a little bit of mashed potato and a little bit of meat, less than what he'd had, like previously, but still the same. And my poor dad died at 59. So as for me, I was ill from 8 years old. I had my tonsils removed. That didn't need to happen. I was fed the wrong food. It's not the food. It is the food. We have to give up that food and eat the correct food. And our own bodies will. So at the age of 8, I was very poorly. I had my tonsils removed. The tonsils are there for a reason. I had very small babies. They were. I wanted children. I lost a lot of children. I had very small, £4.8 £4.10 ounce babies because of my lifestyle. Lucky they're strapping lads now, but then when I was 30, I went to Greece, and they eat a lot of chicken peri-peri in Greece. I didn't know I was a couple of months pregnant. I ate a lot of chicken peri-peri. When I went for my first lots of scans, they said to me, "Oh, we're really, really sorry. Your baby, you've got toxoplasmosis." Sebastian Cole is my age. He had it at that time. And they said, "Your baby will be born the worst, it'll have the worst deformities that it could ever have. And it's been caused by eating undercooked meat, or you've been around cat species." I wasn't around cats. I was eating a lot of chicken peri-peri. Did I think you've got to stop eating this meat? Meat is dangerous. No, because I'd always eaten meat, ate meat. I knew about diets and things, but only for weight loss, not our species-specific diet. So I lost, luckily they said they wanted me to have it terminated, and if that's the right word, and I said, "Give me the weekend to think about it." And I had a miscarriage anyway, so I didn't have to go through having a termination. So then I carried on, I carried on eating meat. And then a few years ago, I caught E. coli. E. coli, and E. coli was caused by a dodgy kebab. Meat again. But I still didn't do bugger all about it, I just carried on as, and I did try certain diets to lose a couple of stone. And then just before I went raw, because I've looked after my husband, my husband had dementia. They sent him home to die, and there's amazing things I did with my husband for the last few years of his life. Back out of the wheelchair, walking. The wheelchair was in the back of the cupboard. My husband knew me up until 9 days before he died. Raw, through going raw. The reason my husband died is because he would have, I'm not saying we got rid of the dementia. It was because I was too afraid to take him off his last medication, which was warfarin, and that's what he died of, and being overdosed with warfarin and getting pneumonia. And if I wanted to take him to India very early on, and I didn't have the money to do it. Had I have taken him to India, they would have told me, like the hospital did 3 months before he died, no, he never needed to stay on that warfarin. Now, I'd been told by the doctors that he had a valve replacement, and it was a pig's valve, and that he had to stay on that warfarin. It wasn't true. So, but where was I going with this? So it wasn't until my stepdaughter actually said what she was intending to do that I started researching, reading, the lights came on, and I know that at least, and I spread the word now, I do not need to earn a living, I do not need to write books. I'm lucky because I've got an income, a passive income from property, and something like, like we've got a monkey on our shoulder, our mind is a monkey, and something makes me post, and I show off, I show my body, I've never ever joined anybody to my Facebook page, and I've got nearly 2,000 followers now, all like-minded people, and one actually was going to have a triple heart bypass. I said, look, please ask them if they'll give you a month or two to try this diet. They got back to me, but I've lost, you know, I've lost. If I could, I did share it earlier on in my Dellas raw food journey. They came off the medication. They didn't need the triple heart bypass, and that could have happened for me as well, you know. So it is our species specific diet. You know, the more what we should be doing is eating from, you know, straight from the trees, eating till we're satisfied. But we don't live in that world now. So any which way that, and I don't eat, I don't worry about my amalgam fillings. I don't worry about the staples down the front of my chest. And I certainly don't worry about eating all organic, because it's just, some people can't afford it. Some countries it's not there. Did I worry any time before I went raw? No. So yes, if I was in a country where I had a choice, I would go all organic. But you know, if I want my spinach and it's in a packet and it's not organic, I'm gonna have it. And earlier on, I was only sort of 2 years into raw. I had a diagnostic body scan to see, you know, apparently it flags up when you've got things wrong, when you've got worms. And I did have worms, and I would suggest I take a tablet called Lompa. That's the only tablet I ever take. If I've been around animals, you can guarantee I've got worms. You know, if I've got cats, I've got worms. So every now and again, I will take a 3-day course. You know, there is other ways to clear the body, but I think, for, you know, all that medication I took from 30 to 59, I'm not going to worry about taking this medication, which was advised by an alternative doctor. And what he actually said to me is, when he did the diagnostic body scan, is I've never seen such a clean body of, you know, toxins and, you know, the from the food and things like that. Your body is really clean. And it was from then that I never worried about, yeah, so.
That's awesome. One of the most frequent questions I'm asked about eating raw fruits and veggies is, are you getting everything you need? And like you said, it's our species specific diet. So of course we're getting everything we need, and sometimes even more water, more nutrition than is required. So it's really just amazing to hear how you shifted that. Yeah.
And I have had blood tests. You know, the thing is, there's 2 things that we might have to take. And first of all, I'm going to say my blood tests this time were not 100% perfect. My homocysteine levels were slightly higher. Now, I have got a problem. I have had a problem previously with my heart. I have had a triple heart bypass. So my homocysteine levels were a little bit high. And my vitamin D, even though I've got the sun, my vitamin D levels were just slightly lower. It goes from 20 to 100, but we should be around 50, no higher than about 60. And mine was 19. So my homocysteine, my vitamin D was, and my 2 of my cholesterol were a little bit higher as well. But when we work, because if the ratio goes into it so many times, it's less likely to be a problem. And my ratio used to be like 3 times, but now it's 5 or 6 times. So that made me feel a little bit better. So what I will be doing, but I can't do it while I'm on lockdown, is and so I went with Alia. She's a raw vegan doctor. I did a consult with Alia recently, because obviously she stopped being a doctor because she didn't want to prescribe medication anymore. So now she's forgotten what it is. It's when you're in a lab and you look at slides and things. So her advice to me, and this is why I started doing the juicing, her advice was add kale. No, so I also, my B12, I wasn't using anything, and my B12, the B12 changes with different blood tests. So one time wasn't using anything, my B12 was 600. The next test I had, it was only 200. And then the next test I had, this last test, it was 500. So, and that was without using anything. But her advice to me was to get my homocysteine back to normal, add in more greens, more dark. I said, well, I have, you know, romaine lettuce. And she said, it's okay, but you need like Swiss chard, you need arugula, you need the other one that I said earlier, the watercress, and you know, you need to add all those into the diet. And also I'd like you to take the B12 supplement. So my supplement, and it worked for Brian, and it's worked for other people that I've recommended. It's the right one. It's got the column in it, and it's a B12 boost spray by Holland and Barrett, and I think it's 1,000 IU, and this will, but I wanted to be au natural and not bother, you know. But I've started taking the B12 again. It's not harmful to the body, just to be on the safe side. And most of us, and the thing is, it's not meat that gives us our B12. It's what they have fed into the meat that gives that. Where do you think the sheep or the cow gets its? You know, it eats the same as we do. It eats grass and that. So you know. But it's what they pump into has got the B12 in it, and also other things like flour. You know, don't quote me, but you know, we've got no rights. They actually put things in our food to give us, you know, like what do they put in the water? And this is why I don't drink water from the tap. You know, I can smell it, you know, the chloride in the water. I use distilled water. When I do drink water, I use distilled water when I soak things. And so I will take the vitamin B12. Now, even though my vitamin D was lacking a little bit, she said, you live in the sunshine, let's see if you go out in the sunshine, which I was doing. But I must admit, if you look at Della's Raw Food Journey, and this happened to me, I've had cancer, skin cancer recently on my face. It was horrendous. If you look back on my photos, you will see my face was literally ripped right down, opened up, and I really thought I was going to be badly disfigured. But it was from unsafe sun, not from the, you know, having safe sun. We need the vitamin D. You know, when I was 16, because this is how they explained it to me, is that when I was 16, I used to fry myself. I used to slap on, you know, ambre solaire. And I remember somebody touching me once and saying to me, you were burned, you know, you need to get out to the sun. And I was horrendously in agony and I really do feel that it's a lifetime in coming. So, I won't not go out in the sun, but, you know, I do my safe sun, and then I wear a hat, I cover up, I cover my arms and everything, and I don't let myself have masses of sun. But I'm not going to fear. When I go out in the morning, I actually don't wear glasses when I run now, because my eyesight it's not, I've not come down in strength, but I haven't gone up in strength since, and I've gone from wearing sunglasses. I never wear sunglasses anymore. It's important that I get the sun, you know, in my eyes. So in the morning, the sun is shining, but this is 8 o'clock in the morning. I actually blink at the sun when I'm running. And so, yeah, I would advise, especially now everybody's being locked indoors, and they're proving, and I don't really want to talk about the coronavirus. I don't watch the telly because it was making me ill in the very beginning. And but they are finding that everybody that they have tested is lacking in vitamin D, and they're going to be, if they've been locked in the house. And vitamin D is a very, very important part of our health. So I would recommend that if you're not in the sun, that you get tested for vitamin D deficiency, and take it, vitamin D, but do your research on it, you know, with the, I'm not going to recommend one to take, because I have been doing a little bit of research, and I think that we not only need vitamin D3, there's another one that is in with the vitamin D3, and I've not got that to mind to actually to tell people, you know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that about how to make sure our nutrition profile is adequate and complete to achieve optimum health. And so you mentioned that you started taking a B12 supplement. Besides the blood work reflecting that change, did you notice any other physical changes?
I can't go and retest until we come out of lockdown. So, but all I'm going to retest for is vitamin B12, because we need that to have gone up. Vitamin B12, vitamin D, and my homocysteine levels, and the 2 cholesterols that were, you know, were a little bit higher. But I believe the body is made up well, the brain is 75% cholesterol, and I'm not eating any foods with cholesterol in. You know, when I enter my foods on Chronometer, there's nothing with, if I was to put some meat on there or something, obviously I would have cholesterol. So what cholesterol is in my body is producing it. I'm not adding it into my body. And, you know, I've spoken to, and because my numbers go in so many times now, I know I'm not filled up. I know that, you know, I know what it feels like, because I was saying earlier on in the conversation that I could never breathe via my nose. Did you know that we're supposed to shut our mouth and breathe in and out via our nose? We should have been brought up doing that. I didn't know that. So just recently, because when I run, I have no problem with the breathing, but I am breathing via my mouth and my nose. And just, you know, I practice now keeping my mouth shut, and I'm breathing via my nose, in and out via my nose, and I'm getting the most tranquil, peaceful feelings from doing this. I have tried to do it when I run, and it's impossible, because I'm running really fast. I need my mouth open, you know. Maybe one day I want to enjoy my run, and if I'm practicing keeping my mouth closed and my nose, you know, and breathing via my nose, I'm not running as fast. I'm not getting the buzz that so I've decided, no, because the little hairs in our nose are there for a reason. And obviously, if cars are passing me, because I run on a mountain, I run uphill a lot of the way, well, walk up the hill a lot of the way, 73% running and the rest is walking. But when I'm in the town and I know there's cars, I will definitely close my mouth and breathe via my nose, because the airs in my nose are feeding, keeping out. So I really, it's so many things that I like researching. I love moving one step further from what I'm actually achieving. And so I will have the blood tests and see. I've introduced the juicing back in, and the greens, although my greens are going in my juice in the morning. The kale and the col, all those greens are going in my juice in the morning. So whether that's going to work for me, and I will let you know. I seem to have to post something on my Dellas raw food journey every day, and I've never had any nastiness, never really had any bad comments, and I get a lot of motivation from some of my followers. Some of my followers have been with me, and they're so intelligent, and I better not name any names. One is going for a degree in reflexology, and she's doing the food, and yet she needs me to, she needs my encouragement, and it's fantastic, really, and then I've got another lady that we need each other, and they motivate me. If I don't do my live, or I don't do a video, because I usually do a live most days, but I've stopped for some reason. Recently I've not done, and I do get about 10 or 12 that come in on my live, the same 12 people, and because we're all predominantly raw, and I might get 200 or 300 people look at the video, as many as 160 in a few hours. So I know that what I'm doing is helping somebody else. I have noticed, which is very sad, that when I started with Facebook, I had maybe 57 family and friends, and so the rest are followers. And I've noticed my family and friends do not comment on my raw food journey. They do not click like on my Della's raw food journey. I might put a funny caption on there, and I get likes. So it does, I do know that there's not, that 99, because I'm only 1% of the population being a raw, I hate calling myself, I like to say I'm sun-kissed, not a raw vegan, that I sun-kissed, because, everything I eat has been kissed by the sun. And I probably got that from somebody else, listening to their podcasts. Hate being called a raw vegan, because I never went into it to be a raw vegan, although now I feel fantastic that I don't use any other living animal to give me my protein or anything that I need, and I've come to accept that a lamb or a sheep is the same as my cat, which I haven't got, or a dog, which I haven't got any longer. And I feel good, that because I really do feel that we wasn't put on this earth, having had the two really bad illnesses, losing a baby and nearly dying with the E. coli. I should have been told because that was your question earlier on, and I've led on to other things. None of the doctors have had education regarding what we should eat. And I will give you one more example of this. if I go into a healing crisis, which, so a healing crisis, we all need, you know, like this flu virus now, we need to have this flu virus. We need to have the antibodies, you know, to fight it off. And it's the elderly. It's myself at 59 wouldn't have lived through the coronavirus. If I'd have caught the coronavirus, it would have seen me off, because my immune system couldn't have fought this off. So my teaching is that when I have that hip bath, I want to have a healing crisis. I want to bring on a healing crisis. That healing crisis could be in the form of flu or cold. It is there for a reason. And so then if I raise the temperature above 37.1, I'm congratulated by my practitioner. She says, right, that is it. Your body is going through healing mode. I want you to go to bed. Don't use technology. If you want to read a book, you know, switch off from the world, take to your bed, sip water as needed, and fast for 3 days. And then what happens? The body heats up, the blood heats up, and it carries past toxins. Because my body, when I started raw, if you imagine my body as a bin, and my bin was up to here, and this is what's happening with the world, right? Their bin is up to here, they come down with the coronavirus, and their bin overflows and they're dying in the thousands, in the millions. No different from when they die of the flu. So my bin was up to there, couldn't breathe via my nose, was on all these medications, couldn't walk. And then slowly, as I get a healing crisis, my body froze off and it pulls it down. It pulls the, you know, so that the bin is only to here, and then another healing crisis takes it down to there, and another healing crisis. And so over time, it's down in my waist area now, not up in my up in the top of my body. So that 3-day fast. So if I have to use the dent, when I had the cancer on my face, I said, do not put me out. It was the wrong thing, because I thought it was a tiny little mark on my face, and I didn't realize they were going to rip my face, you know, like come down in a V, flap it back, and do what they had to do. So I know this sounds awful, but I didn't be put out. Very lucky that I wasn't put out, because he came, the scar is right to my eye. If I'd not stopped him, my eye would be disfigured now, because that's what happens to a lot of people when they have the operation that I had. After the operation, I wouldn't take any painkillers at all, because I would have been putting toxins in my body. I just had to suffer the pain, but I did use hot, not on my face. I put hot compress around my neck, and that seemed to relieve the actual pain. If I've had to have teeth extracted, I've had to have, you know, a root, you know, and people say against root canals. You know, I've got root canals in my mouth. I don't want to do what my brother and sister have to do and put teeth in and take them out, you know. So after I've had the procedure, I do not take, I've even had my teeth done where I've not had the injection, because it's the last thing in the body, first thing out. So then I fast, you know, because I want that toxin back out of my body. I don't wait for a healing crisis. I fast for 1 or 2 days and then get back on with my life again. And I've not taken any medication, because I know that and this, you know, I will have to be taken screaming if they want to give me a vaccine. I stopped my flu jab 6 years ago, and what did my flu jab do for me for the 15 years I was taking it? It gave me the flu. You know, straight afterwards, it gave me the flu. Since I've not taken it, I do get my flu. I need to have that flu. I need, if I suppress it with medication and lozenges and this, that, and the other, it's putting more waste in my body, and it's making my bin go up to there. So that's it. That's my, you've had everything thrown at you now. I think that I've covered most things, you know, and it feels good. It feels good.
Thank you so much. So do you have any lasting words of wisdom, any advice or takeaways for our listeners today about why eating fruit and raw foods is so important to our species?
Well, we need, when we're born, our body is 99% water. I might be wrong. Don't ever listen 100%, because I get my tidbits and I say it as I want to say it. So when we're born, our bodies are 99% water. If we were fed our species-specific diet of mainly predominantly fruit, we would have been getting the 99% water in our body. And so over time, because we're eating cooked food and we're eating the wrong foods, we're stripping our body of that 99%. From the day we're born, we're dying, you know, but it's how we do it. Like, I was dying before, now I am flying. You know, I'm going to walk into my grave. But over the years, this is what is happening to us. We're depleting our body of its water. So the only food that is going to give us that water is fruit and vegetables. Vegetables have water in it, you know. Vegetables have, so this is where it's come about, you know, probably not the same way as I'm explaining it, but it's because it's the only thing. So if we have some rice, that is depleting our body of its water, and then we think, you know, we got to drink 2 liters of water. Did you know that water doesn't go into the same channel as the fruit goes? It goes into a different, you know, it gets taken in via the body a different way. So it's never going to give us what fruit would give us. So, and also it's that monkey mind. You've got to stop that monkey mind. You are in control of what you do, and it's easy for me. It's easy for me, because I was dying. I was very ill. You know, I passed my sell-by date. My my body was so compromised, you know, and for me to feel the difference, this is why I can sit in front of you. I don't have palpitations from my heart anymore. I couldn't go outside. I had to have the aircon on. I couldn't sit here and preach to you if I still was compromised in my body. I'm not. All the things I've got wrong with me, and yet give up the coals, which is anything that we're eating apart from fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds have to be in moderation, because it's fat. Any fat in the body is bad fat if it's over a certain amount, and that's why the fat has to be kept around 10% or just a little bit higher than 10%. And then what slows my arteries, I'd love to have another angiogram, but I probably never will, because you can die having an angiogram. You can lose your leg. I didn't know this, but I could have actually lost, when I was in recovery after I had 7 angiograms. So I was playing Russian roulette 7 times. The last time I was put on the ward, the woman in the next bed had had to have her leg amputated because of having, so what's more severe? You know, what is more severe? Giving up crap, you know, the standard American diet, SOS, no salt, no, so what is it? No, SOS stands for, do you know what SOS is?
Is it salt, oil, and sugar, refined sugar?
That's it. So we've got to give up those things: salt, oil, sugar, and everything. Because everything, biscuits and everything, and processed food have all got salt to keep it on the shelf. And even us vegans. I would even say, they're making vegan burgers and this, that, and it's not the ideal, but it's better than what we were doing. It's not going to give us the pinnacle of health, but it is going to take us, that bin is going to empty, and how far down you want that bin to empty. So say there was a 15-year-old or a 10-year-old person listening to me now, and they didn't have like the wrinkled skin, they hadn't aged from depleting their body of the water from the food, from the fruit. They probably, are going to look fantastic. They're going to have the hourglass figure, they're going to look at, they're going to have the perfect BMI, the perfect weight, and they're never going to have to worry about starving themselves for I don't starve, I eat. I can't starve, I need to eat, and I can have what I want, basically. I really can have what I want, and it feels, when I eat that fruit lunchtime, I could eat another bowl and another bowl, and I could just live on that fruit.
Yes, it's so, so delicious. And I just want to thank you so much, Della, for sharing your story and your words of wisdom for us today. It has been such a pleasure listening to your experience. I know I can resonate with so much of what you've shared, and I hope our listeners can too. So thank you again.
I do too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you to all the listeners for joining us on this journey, and I wish you all a happy, healthy, and dynamic day. Bye.